What is reasonable to hold back from God? Given that this is a homily in the context of Mass, you already know that the answer is nothing, but I want to push on that a little bit. What's reasonable to hold back from God? I think if we had to name anything, we would name our first reading in our Gospel. This woman in our first reading has absolutely nothing left. She's very clear. She has exactly enough flour and enough oil to bake one cake for her and her son, and then she is going to die. She has nothing left. And this prophet of God shows up and says, "Great, do whatever you want, but just make sure I eat before you do." That seems incredibly unreasonable. And most of us would take the side of this widow and to say that's crazy. She should absolutely take care of herself and her son before anybody else. Or similarly with this widow in our gospel with her 2 small coins. If that's truly all she has left, who would blame her for keeping those just to live a little bit longer, rather than giving truly all she has left to the treasury, which by the gospel itself is already receiving large sums of money? The treasury doesn't need her 2 small coins, and yet she gives them anyway. So when we would say it's not reasonable to hold anything back from God, we have to ask, do we truly believe it? Or do we look at these situations and say, well, okay, this is the exception. And then do we build from that into things in our life? Well, okay, God can have all of this, but not this thing. I need to hold on to this thing. This is the thing that God isn't going to take care of, so I have to take care of. I think for many of us, that great temptation really is money. We would say, sure, I trust the Lord. I know God's going to take care of me. He's going to take care of me in my emotions, or in my prayer, or in my family, or in my relationships. But, I'm the one who has to go to work, and I'm the one who has to make sure I have enough for retirement, and I'm the one who has to make sure, I can pay my kids' tuition. So, yeah, sure, I'll give everything else to God, but money is my domain. This is what I have to hold on to. This is what I have to deal with. The lesson from our gospel is the opposite of that. If we truly want God to bless us in something, we cannot be possessive of that thing. We can't keep holding on to it without letting go, because then God won't have the opportunity to bless us. This woman in our first reading, had she not given a cake to the prophet, she would have died. She only had enough flour and oil for one more meal, and then she said she was going to die. But she said, you know what? This is truly a prophet of God. I'm going to give him the last that I have. I'm not even going to hold this back from God. And in so doing, by giving everything over to the Lord was then able to give her everything back in return. And she experiences this incredible miracle where she can see how much flour she has. She can see how much oil she has, and yet she never runs out. It never goes away. The oil never runs dry. Because she had already given it all to the Lord, he was able to give it back to her in spades. We cannot be blessed by things that we do not give into the hands of the Lord. The Lord cannot bless us through our families unless we give control of our families to the Lord. The Lord cannot bless our emotions unless we give our emotions to the Lord. The Lord cannot bless us through our time unless we say, Lord, my time is not my own, it is yours, and I will use it for your glory before I use it for myself. And that's absolutely true with our money. The Lord cannot bless us in our money unless first we give up control of our money and we recognize this is the Lord's before it is mine. Now, if it's not obvious, this is a homily about tithing. That's where we're going. What's important about tithing is that before anything else, it is a spiritual practice. I don't preach on tithing just because the church needs money. We do. The only money we have comes from the pews on Sunday. We don't have a secret stash of gold somewhere making interest. But more than anything else, I want you to have the tools to fight the temptation to believe that your economic prosperity is your responsibility. To believe that money is going to make you happy. To believe that you have to retain control of your finances. It's a powerful temptation. There are many good Christians who have given everything into the hands of the Lord except their wallet. But money is a temptation against true happiness. If we think, I need this much money to be happy, we will never reach that amount, because once we hit that amount, we're going to need more and more and more, and we're never going to be happy. But if we say, it is the Lord's responsibility to take care of me, and it is the Lord's responsibility to bless me. And so in recognition of that, I'm going to give up control of my money by giving the Lord His due before I take any for myself. Then we lose the temptation to say, I'm going to control this. It's out of our control. It's in the Lord's hands, and now I don't have to worry about it. And I promise you, you will be so much happier if you do so. I can tell you a story from my own life. I've been tithing since 2011. I did 1 year in seminary before I realized this is something I really needed to do. And so I tithed through 6 years of seminary, and as a seminarian, you get like a $3,000 check from the diocese to pay for books and travel. And then every now and again, a Knights of Columbus chapter will kind of give you a check and be like, have fun. But you don't make any money at all. And I was tithing the entire time, and I can tell you, I never wanted for anything. I was able to get to my college reunions. I was able to get to see my family. I could go out to dinner from time to time. I never wanted for anything because even when I wasn't having a guaranteed income, I was giving my money into the hands of the Lord. And then probably the more powerful story in my own life is when COVID happened and we weren't offering public masses, I really wanted to be in solidarity with people, and I didn't know how. So I made a resolution very early on to say, all right, I am not going to take an income until we have public masses again. Every dollar that I was paid, I just donated right back to the church. Now, that was easy to resolve when we thought the lockdown was going to be 2 weeks. And then it was a month, and then it was 2 months, and then it was 3 months. But at no point did I ever back away from that resolution. Because I trust the Lord. The Lord was going to take care of me. And as a priest, I can also say people take care of their priests very well too. But I wasn't worried about it. It wasn't great, but I wasn't worried about it. Because I had a habit of tithing since 2011. I had a habit of giving my money away. And I had a habit of trusting the Lord. And when you trust the Lord, He does take care of you. He doesn't necessarily make your bank account increase, but He does give you everything you need to be happy and successful. Now, practically, what does this look like? This is where you get math homework. I love math homework. I was a math kid in school. Math homework made me happy. So I gave you math homework. In your pews, there's a worksheet. Hand it down if you don't see it. If we run out because this is the last Mass at Sacred Heart, there are worksheets in the entrances on your way out. But you'll notice this entire homily, I've been specifically using the word tithing rather than stewardship. Stewardship is a fine word. It is biblically based, although tithing is also a biblical word. I found we've just been using stewardship so long, it's something of a euphemism. So I don't use it. Tithing, instead, gets at the truth of the matter, which is, in order to give up control of our finances, in order to show that we trust the Lord, in order to recognize that we are blessed by the Lord, and tithing is our return on those blessings, the appropriate practice is to give a percentage of our income the second it comes in. Which is to say, when I get $1, some amount of that dollar goes out before I pay anything else. This is pre-tax, pre-expense income. Tithing is based on the idea that in the Bible, it was required to give 10% of everything that came in back to God. I don't push the 10% number as much as, for example, the evangelical churches in the area. They're very strict that everybody does 10%. For me, I don't know if I can require that. It's a goal in the Bible that we might work toward, but instead I want to focus on the percentage base on that. Why? Well, because the sacrifice is is based on the relative sacrifice to our income. So, we might have somebody who's very generous. Maybe there's somebody who's giving $100 a week to the church, right? Very generous. Well, if they're making $100,000 a week, then it doesn't really matter anything, right? If they're making $150 a week and 100 of that is going to the church, that's a much higher level of sacrifice. So we think in terms of percentages because we're trying to get at what level of sacrifice am I able to make for the Lord this year? How much of the Lord's blessings can I give back? And that's best represented through a percentage. So the way you do that, first line, what's your annual income? If you fill out your taxes every year, you already know that number. You can look it up. And if you don't fill out your taxes, unfortunately, you just missed confession, so you have to wait a week. You have your annual income, and then multiply by a percentage. And this is where the prayer comes in. Like I said, tithing is a spiritual practice. This is where the discernment is. What's the percentage that I'm able to give to the Lord this year? What am I going to try to do for the Lord? If you've never done percentage-based giving, try out 2.5% and see where that takes you. Because 2.5%, if you work a 40-hour week, 2.5% represents 1 hour of your labor. Just as you give God 1 hour a week of time by coming to Mass, you can give 1 hour a week of money by giving 2.5%. And maybe over time, you want to spend the first 2 hours of your week working for the Lord, or the first 3 hours of your week working for the Lord. Increase the percentage based on that. But if you've never done it, 2.5%. If you've been doing percentage-based giving, your responsibility each year is just to pray about the percentage. Is this an appropriate level of sacrifice? Based on the way the Lord has blessed me, based on what I'm trying to do, where I am with my spiritual life. Once you have an annual income and a percentage, you do multiplication, and I know multiplying by decimals is hard, so ask your 7th grader, they'll remind you how to do it. And then it gives you a number. And the number is where the fun starts. Because you've already made that commitment. You've said, all right, I've already committed to sacrificing 2.5% of my income for the Lord every year, or 5%, or 10%. I've made that commitment. This worksheet gives me a number. And then, just give the money away. That's the fun part. You have a certain amount of money. The hard part was making that resolution. But now you just have a stack of money. You can just make it rain on every charity that you want. It's awesome. And the point of the worksheet is to help you discern where you want that to go. This is every ask we think we're going to make over the next year. The parish, obviously there. The Catholic school is there. St. Vincent de Paul is there. Viking Catholic is there. Every second collection that we're required to do by the U.S. bishops and by our local bishop. And then personal causes. I have 2 personal causes I give to monthly. Aren't on the sheet, but I write them in. And you've made the commitment. Divide up that money between these sources. And you're good. You're good for a year. Because you've already made the commitment. So when it comes up, when we mention the second collection, it's not like pulling teeth. You're like, oh, it's another ask for money. No, I've already decided what I was going to do. I just pull out my sheet. I see what I decided. I write the check. We're good to go. Easy peasy. If you wonder how to divide it up, personally, I give 1/3 to the parish, 1/3 to the archdiocese, and then 1/3 to other worthy causes. But if you know how the annual Catholic appeal works, if we don't hit our goal, that comes out of the parish budget. If we do hit our goal, it all goes back to the parish, which means the annual Catholic appeal is basically part of the parish budget. So really I'm giving 2/3 to the parish and 1/3 to other worthy causes. But if I say 1/3 to the archdiocese, it makes me look good in front of the archbishop. Final note. The thing that's most important for you to hear, again, we push this because it's good for us spiritually. Money is a powerful temptation, and our desire to control our money is very powerful. We think we and only we are responsible for ourselves, that this is fully on me and nobody else is going to help me out, least of all the Lord. Money is not going to make us happy, and controlling it is not going to make us secure. It is not reasonable to hold anything back from the Lord. If there is in your heart something where you say, the Lord can have everything else except this thing, you have to fight that thing. You have to tear it down for the idol that it is. And in my experience, for many of us, that thing is money. Tithing is the practice we just put in place so that you never have to face that temptation. just takes care of it. And I can tell you, as somebody who's been tithing now for 13, 14 years of my life, it's very joyful. I'm very happy. It's easy for me to be generous. It's easy for me to give money to good causes, to go to fundraisers. And I just don't have anxiety or worry. I know that it's in the Lord's hands. I've gotten rid of any power that my money has over me. And I feel very blessed. I hope that you would experience a similar blessing and a similar freedom. The Lord loves you and will take care of you, as long as you give everything that you are, all of your concerns and anxieties, onto Him.